when it comes to repopulation and also damage assessment, I want to talk about for a few minutes. When it comes, we started yesterday really shrinking up the best we can over on the Wallbridge fire with repopulation. We've shrunk it down as about as tight as we can get. We're continuing looking at that today. For the entire complex yesterday, we got about 7,000 residents repopulated. We're continuing to do that now, and I just got done with a meeting. And I know we're talking about this. It is my priority, and I gave a very clear leader's intent here just a little while ago. Again, is as soon as it is feasible and possible, I want people back in their homes. And so I don't think I can make that any more clear with the team that I have here and with everybody that I'm talking with. It is a priority, but we have to do it safely. There's a lot into that with a lot of the utility companies and everything else we have. So we're feeling good there. As far as damage assessment, some good news. We're about on the west zone over there. We're about 55 as this morning, 55% complete with the damage assessment. That's for validated structures that we're doing. So those numbers keep coming out. One thing I do want to highlight, and I highlighted this morning in the news briefing, was within the fire perimeter, we have 253 residences within the fire perimeter that are not damaged. And I think that's a good number to get out to everybody. So that's a positive note for us. As we keep saying every day, it is a difficult chunk of ground over there you guys have. And, we're doing the best we can. Make no mistake too. And I keep saying we have the fire in Rumsey Canyon that is over here on the west or the east side. At some point we've got plans in there, but that's going to have to eat up some resources over there. It's a very difficult chunk of ground. So with that, I would like to turn this over to Chief Nichols for a more operational update directly on the Wallbridge.
Thank you, Chief. So the marine layer last night didn't quite come in as far as it's come in the last several nights. So we've got a little bit more fire to deal with today as far as we started off the day warmer and drier. So crews are still making headway out there. But to go with that, kind of working our way around the fire, crews are trying to go direct up on Mount Jackson Resort Road, back down to Sweetwater Springs, Pasquini Canyon back towards Sweetwater Springs as well. Are 2 points where we've got crews on the line going direct, getting that line cut in so that we've cut off that fire from any further advance. We are trying to get some crews into an area where currently we have indirect line, but due to the topography there at the top of McPeak Road, we're having a little difficulty with that. So we have a dozer line down below it, approximately 4 blades wide. So we're optimistic that will hold, but we're trying to get those crews directly onto the fire's edge to get that cut in. Working around the corner up in the Mill Creek area, Thackeray Road area, there's a firing operation that was conducted a couple nights ago to tie in that Mill Creek Road section. Due to the increase in relative humidity, that didn't burn quite as clean as we needed it to, so that we have a controlled black line to work off of. So crews are continuing to try to get those interior islands to burn out so that there's no threat of flare-ups along the line. The firing operation that I talked about yesterday out in the House Creek area, Bungee Bridge location on the north side of the fire out by Las Lomas, that firing operation is still holding. Crews are getting in there and getting those hose lays established and reinforced so that we can make sure that that corner of the fire doesn't create issues for us. As you might recall, that was a very technical firing operation that the crews pulled off. There was a small slop over, but they were able to contain it quickly, and so they're continuing to reinforce that today. Crews are also working in a very remote area between Red Slide and the backside of Pool Ridge, getting resources in through Armstrong Woods and out into that area around Gray Creek and the base of Red Slide to button up that corner with the early push that the fire had made out there. The fire that had gotten down into the grove, the actual grove of redwood trees in Armstrong Woods, there is direct fire line on that at this point. There were hose lays plumbed 2 days ago, and crews are continuing to mop up those hot spots and hold that line, but there is no further advance of fire into the Armstrong Woods Grove. Utility companies are currently out there working interior on the burn area to try to get that infrastructure back in place to support what Chief Kavanaugh was talking about getting folks home just as soon as possible. And I ask the public, as we get deeper into this incident, we're pushing 2 weeks at this point, that people are growing tired and we've got the fatigue setting up. But I just wanted to take the moment to remind folks that the engine count that Chief Kavanaugh just gave, that works out to be approximately 733 acres per fire engine that's assigned to this fire to try to address all of those smokes and those hot spots within the interior of the burn. So there's still a lot of work out there for our fire engine companies to take care of, and just know that they're doing everything they can as fast as they can to get you home. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. That certainly is good news. 253 residents in the middle of that burn zone that are saved. That's certainly encouraging news. So thank you. We'll now go to Chris Godley, Chief of our Emergency Operations Center. Chief, Chris.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Repopulation also continues, as Chief Kavanaugh mentioned, with the new warning zones having been established in Guerneville last night. That carve out, if you would, does allow for a significant number of people to return home, as well as this afternoon's move to allow for folks to move into the West Side Road area between the Gary Farrell Winery and the intersection at West Side at Sweetwater Springs Road. So relatively small on that one, but it still demonstrates the commitment by fire and law enforcement to really maximize the potential for people to go home. Currently, under orders, we still have 2,127 residents, and in warning zones, a population of 1,507. Roads, building inspectors, environmental health folks, hazardous materials inspectors are all in the areas where they can safely go to assess and make sure that the area is safe for residents to return. Also, PG is working aggressively in the area to assess damage and make sure that their network is safe as well. In many of these areas, it's important to know that damaged trees, fire damaged trees, pose a significant falling hazard, and those need to be removed. In terms of the response for shelters, our shelter counts are going down significantly as people return home. Last night, we had just 29 folks at the Santa Rosa shelter and 20 at Sonoma State dorms. Even though we're moving into recovery more aggressively, a lot of folks still can't get home, and we certainly understand that. The reentry stations that have been established are closing out today. All that information and all those materials will be transitioning to the 2 local assistance centers, which will be opening tomorrow in Guerneville and Healdsburg. FEMA is going to be co-located at those sites, and we're working also to support the ability to obtain most of these services online. Damage itself is also a work in progress. As the chief alluded to, we are hoping to have some numbers maybe by this weekend that'll give us a real sense of scope of impact. There is some optimism because it is, as just highlighted, a significant number of homes were either not directly exposed to the fire or were in fact saved by the firefighter efforts. County staff is also concurrently working in the background to demobilize the resources that have been brought to bear in many of these areas like shelter, and ensure that we can reset and refit them for response for future fire or power shutoff incidents. And as always, we encourage everyone to obtain the most latest, greatest up-to-date information at socoemergency.org. That's it.
Thank you, Chris. For more on our reentry, we'll go to Sergeant Juan Valencia of the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office. Sergeant? Sergeant, you're on mute. So.
Sorry. Thank you for having me. So just to get couple things straight, West Side Road is still under an order that has not been lifted. So yesterday we've been working in collaboration, obviously, with CALFIRE, trying to get people back. Yesterday we had some good news. We were able to get parts of Guerneville down in the Guerneville area back home. We're still working on Rio Nido, Hacienda, and West Dry Creek areas. We understand people are anxious to get back home. We hear you. The problem is that we want to make sure it's safe for you guys to return back home. There's a lot of steps that we have to take CALFIRE has to do their thing, and then the utility companies. We want to make sure you guys are safe when you go back. Your safety is number one priority. Nixles are going to be used for the repopulation. You will receive a nixle when an area is open for either re-entry or repopulation. It's going to be very clear on the instructions of what needs to be done or the steps. We currently have 3,589 people under an order and 1,941 people under warning. It's a slow moving fire, as CALFIRE stated. It's slow moving. People are frustrated. We want to get people back. We're working around the clock to get people back. And I just want to emphasize on that we are not, we're up 20, well, most of us are about working about 20 hours a day trying to get people back and organize the repopulation and the reentry. So it's not just something where we flip the switch on and it's open. I wish it was that simple. It's like I stated earlier, this is a totally different fire than Tubbs and Kincaid. It's not a firestorm. It's slow and slow basically, or low and slow, and it's burning the understory. First off, I really want to thank the community for being patient with us, understanding that this is a very big fire that CALFIRE is dealing with. We dealt with the evacuations and getting people out, and I really want to take the time to thank people for listening to those orders and evacuating and letting CALFIRE and other fire personnel go in there and do their job and save the community. We want to talk about also is, you know, this, now we're kind of starting to get to that recovery phase where some people are able to go back into the burned area. They may have a house, they might not have a house to go back to that was damaged or burned during the fire. It's a very long process, and we understand that. We just want to remind people to be kind to each other and take care of your neighbor and your family. We've made no arrests for any looters, but we did make 2 arrests for people entering the evacuation zone. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant. As we know, we're dealing with multiple situations right now, and certainly one of them is COVID-19, and we now go to Dr. Sundari Mase. Today, the governor provided a new framework for us to move in this COVID-19 environment. And Dr. Mase, thank you for joining us. I know we'll have some questions for you about that.
Thank you.
So I think what we'd like to do now is go directly to the media to ask questions. For those particularly focused on, Dr. Mase has to go soon. So if some of you want to focus on questions for her, but I know our fire officials also need to get back. So let's start by going to Guy Kovner. Guy?
Oh, hello. Am I on?
You're on, Guy.
Okay. I think that Chris Godley and Juan Valencia gave strikingly different figures for the number of people still under evacuation orders and still in warning zones. I wonder if you could help me with that.
I think Chris might have more updated numbers. Chris?
I think Juan's got them more updated on the areas that are actually open. So I defer to him, of course, to the Sheriff's Department, which areas are actually opening to warnings. I can tell you, we just do a GIS assessment based on when the warnings like Burnville was created last night. We run the census population for the individuals registered as residents in that specific geographic area. And that's how we come up with our estimates of the residents that are impacted either by orders or warnings.
Well, let's see. What I wrote down is that, Chris, you said there were 2,127 people still under evacuation orders. And if I'm not mistaken, Juan's figure was 3,589. And then for the people still in warning zones, you gave 1,507 and Juan gave 1,941.
That is correct. So I think I'll have to get a hold of Chris after this, and we'll get you guys the correct information. These are the numbers that I received today, this morning. Chris and I will figure out what the difference is on numbers.
Okay, and then
I'll work with them, Guy, to get you the right numbers. I think
And
that
again-
I think we recently updated our estimates of how many in those zones were actually evacuated.
okay, that's pretty critical. And while I got the floor, so to speak, wanted to ask Ben, it seems like things are getting pretty well buttoned up. What would you say going forward is the most critical need? I think particularly in terms of establishing the firm black line around the entire fire.
So the bulk of the bulldozer lines have been completed. Actually, to date, we've got the dozer lines in that we're going to have at this point, barring new fire progression. And now it's a matter of getting the limited hand crews we have in to cut out the areas that the bulldozers couldn't get to reinforce hose lays that engine companies have put in to connect those dots. So the resources that we need now are the engines and the limited hand crews that we have. The addition of the 12 National Guard crews the other day, that gave us a definite boost in handline production capacity. But in the meantime, we had been tooling up some of the city municipal fire engines and other resources to affect those hand lines. So those hand lines are getting put in. Hose lays are being staffed to start that long, laborious process of the mop up to make sure that we've got the fire's edge under control.
So does that mean you basically got the entire fire encircled at this point?
The bulk of the fire is encircled, as I mentioned earlier, with the update on the incident that crews are continuing to work the corner up at House Creek near the Bungee Bridge area. Because those were two technical firing operations that were done two operational periods ago. And so there's still some significant residual heat. We got to get that buttoned up so that we don't have a risk of that line coming out. Because if that were to escape out of that corner, we would need to draw a much bigger box due to the topography of that area. The other part that we have dozer line below it, but we want to go direct to cut it off before it gets down to that dozer line, is the section up above McPeak Road. Just due to the extreme slopes up there, we couldn't get bulldozers right on the fire's edge. So we're currently trying to get a couple of crews in there with Type 6 fire engines, basically pickup based fire engines that have the accessibility that some of the larger engines don't have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Guy. This is just a reminder that we are broadcasting on Facebook Live, and if viewers would like to pose a question to our panelists, please go ahead and leave it in the comments box. This one is directed to Dr. Mase, and it really is based on the governor's new directions today. The question from Kate is, can hair salons open on Monday? She's a hairstylist. What do you think?
Yeah, hi, thanks very much. Per the governor's guidance, which as you pointed out, just came out here, it looks like regardless of the tier a county is, hair salons and barbershops could open indoors with modifications. Of course, that would be all of the mitigation measures we've always talked about, the ability to maintain that social distancing, the facial coverings that need to happen between the client and the hairstylist, that kind of thing. So we are looking at our data to see if our cases are associated with hair salons or barbershops. Preliminarily, we haven't seen a lot of cases associated, but we're going to look at that. And by Monday, we will make a decision on how to move forward with that. And I'm in touch with, obviously we'll discuss with the supervisors as well as county council and our epidemiologists. So more to come on that.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Mase. I'll go to Martin Espinoza now. Martin?
Hi, Dr. Mase. So with this new tier system, this new and tier and colored system, we're in the highest level of transmission zone. What does this new system mean for Sonoma County? What is the earliest we can get to the next lower level without getting into too many details? Because I know it's kind of complicated with these three-week and 2-week wait periods. But can you simplify the process for our readers?
Yeah. So first of all, let me just say we are in very good company with the majority of the counties in California. In fact, pretty much all the counties south of us and Mendocino are in the purple, with the exception of Napa and San Diego that are in the red, which is the second tier. So what this means very simply is that new metrics that are being used by the state, we're above the threshold. One of those metrics is the number of new cases per day per 100,000 population. And I think we're at 15 or 16, and you'd have to be under 7 in order to fall out of the purple tier. And the second metric is the one we've always used. That's the case positivity rate. In other words, what percentage of the total cases, total tests done are positive. And last I looked on our dashboard, we're at 10.9%, and the cutoff again is 8%. Now, if a county meets either one of these metrics to be in the purple, then we go into the purple. Let's say one is purple, one's red, you still go into the purple. Now, there is a provision by which if your county had been in the red last week, let's say, and now you're in the purple, that you may not need to wait the 3 weeks, but that's not our case. We've pretty much, per these metrics also, been in the purple for weeks at this time. So we would basically need to come out of this, and I think it would be for 3 weeks, we'd have to come out of the purple and be out of the purple, is my understanding right now, having just read through this once, and it is quite complicated, Martin, as you said. In order for us to go into a lower tier, we'd have to come out on both of those statistics, both those metrics, and be in the red zone for 3 weeks before we can go into that.
I think the state has us meeting that second positivity metric at 6.5% for some reason.
Right, and again, the state doesn't, in other words, our data is different at times, and we have worked really hard to resolve that. In our own database, it looks like it's greater than 10%. Again, if you look at the last paragraph in the guidance, it says that when your county level data is different than the state level data, there is a county data adjudication process by which we will talk with our county data monitoring regional coordinator and figure out what the difference is and come to an agreed upon value based on that, which we'll need to do for the case positivity rate.
Just one last thing, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, it seems like the biggest difference here is going to be that counties won't be able to come off the list and then bounce back on that right away.
Well, that was part of the process before as well. I think that they're thinking that this is actually a more comprehensive way of looking at the data. In other words, the number of new cases per day over a 7-day period with a 7-day lag, that it's a better way of looking at the data more real time. And so anyways, we'll see how this process goes and how different counties do over time.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Mase, just to clarify, some of our followers on Facebook are asking what you were saying about the likelihood of that the hair salons will be able to open on Monday. That'll apply to other personal care services, which the governor discussed today as well. Is that correct?
Well, I think the guidance from the state, if I'm not wrong, and I'm looking at it right now, is that when we're in the purple tier, that other personal care services can only be outdoors, not indoors, as they've been already. So the only thing to which this applies in the purple tier is hair salons and barber shops that can be open indoors with modifications if we feel like we're not having cases in that area. Again, the way this works is the local county then can apply these reopenings as they see fit based on their own data. So it's based on the local epidemiologic data, what we decide to do. But the personal care services, there's no change in for purple tier counties.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Okay, we're now, I'm now going to go to Sylvia Lemus for another a quick reminder. Thank you, Sylvia.
Bienvenido a las personas que se acaban de conectar con esta conferencia de prensa. Si quieren escuchar en español por Zoom, vaya a la parte de abajo de la pantalla y a la derecha donde encuentra un símbolo de globo. Y ahí es donde puede buscar la interpretación o interpretation y haga clic para seleccionar español o Spanish y automáticamente se cambiará al español. También le recordamos que estamos transmitiendo en vivo en la página del Condado Sonoma a través de YouTube. Muchas gracias.
Great. Thank you, Sylvia. So now for more on local support and resources, I'd like to go to Susan Gorin, our chair of our Board of Supervisors. Chair Gorin.
Good afternoon. Excuse me. Good afternoon. Thanks everybody for tuning in to our media briefing this afternoon. And thanks go to so many people. We are so delighted that we are moving back into the burn areas. And thank you especially to Supervisor Hopkins and Gore for your great communications to residents who are understandably frazzled at the moment and so anxious to move back home. So thank you to the Board of Supervisors, all of our incredible first responders, and let's move on and help them recover. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Supervisor Hopkins.
Thank you. I had an opportunity to speak with a constituent from Hacienda today, which reminded me of a couple of things. Number one, I don't think we've been talking enough about Hacienda. I know there have been a lot of questions and comments made about Rio Nido and Armstrong Woods, but I just want to acknowledge the impact to the community of Hacienda as well. And I understand how challenging it is to still be evacuated from your home and to not have a firm date of when you'll be able to return and sleep in your own bed. So I want you to know that if you are struggling to find resources, whether that is food or lodging, please let us know. You can email District 5, that's the number 5, not spelled out, at sonoma-county.org. And I, along with the rest of the awesome District 5 team, will be monitoring the email throughout the weekend and trying to do whatever we can to support you. I want to also acknowledge that our congressional representatives are not able to be on the call today, but I've been coordinating with both Congressman Thompson as well as Congressman Huffman regarding an issue surrounding critical needs assistance, or CNA. This could actually mean $500 per household for anyone who is displaced from their home by the fire. And so I'm working with the federal partners to determine the criteria of who will be able to qualify for this benefit. While there won't be formal briefings over the weekend, please know that the D5 team will send out an update via social media and via email newsletter as soon as we get confirmation about this resource. And I do understand that it's been approved at the federal level, but they haven't worked out what the qualifications will be. So it might, for instance, only be for folks who were under mandatory evacuation for, say, a week or more, which does qualify a lot of our households. Additionally, just wanted to remind you that the LAC, or Local Assistance Center, will be opening at the Bank of America building in Guerneville on Main Street there tomorrow. Hours on Saturday, August 29th are 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. And then starting Sunday, August 30th, the hours will be 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. And that will be daily through at least September 4th. So the LACs may remain open after that date if they are needed, but at least through September 4th. And I believe that Director Godley already covered this, but just a reminder that the Mirabel Park and Ride or Mirabel Triangle location for a re-entry point will be closing down at the end of today. So if you do need equipment to go out there and assess your burned property, so that's the goggles, the Tyvek suits, gloves, N95 masks, that will be available at the LAC. So you would want to go to the Guerneville Bank of America building tomorrow. So take care, everyone. Stay strong. I know that the law enforcement as well as CALFIRE is working around the clock to try to get you home safely as soon as we can. And in the meantime, let us know if you need food or shelter. Take care.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Gore?
Yeah, thank you, Paul, and for everybody who's on the call. Similarly, we're hearing about it's a sticky time right now. We're hearing a lot of people who are desperate to get back and see their properties, whether they've had structure loss or not. Reiterating what has been said before about the utilities out there in the area and working. I personally just got off the call with a group of neighborhood organizers in one of the hardest hit areas, and firsthand went through with them the initial phases of anger, frustration, hopes, and need for support, and also need to get out of the way. We all know that this is the toughest of times. It's not only a time for us to jump straight into recovery and bring the recovery mechanism forward and be professional, but more than that, it's a time for us to double, triple down on the efforts that we've made into resiliency over the past 4 to 5 years. Communities are frustrated. This is 3 out of 4 years of mega fires, and also two of those years floods as well, and a litany of other issues. As much as we continue to say Sonoma strong, the work and the progress we've achieved on response, which is everything from forecasting into evacuation warnings, communications through Nixle and WIA alerts and all these other things. We know that true resiliency is in vegetation management, home hardening, and really the grunt work that's needed going forward. So as I just want us to remind everybody that we can't rest on our laurels. We can't just say, hey, we did a good job responding to this one. There's a lot of pain out there in our community, and there's a lot of demands for change. So these things like finding ways to work with Chief Nichols and others on identifying from 1719 and now in 2000, the dozer lines that we have to hold as fire breaks in perpetuity going forward. How we continue to support communities, not just in things like evacuation, but in prevention. It's go time. So all our work on community wildfire protection plans, all of our work on hazard mitigation plans, all of these different gobbledygook of government programs and grants and other things, it doesn't mean a damn thing if we don't get ahead of this. So here to just express that with the community and to the partners on the call to continue our work to stop responding to these events, and having more updates about in the coming years about what we've the disasters we have mitigated. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Zane?
Yes, I just want to remind everybody that we're, of course, living in tense times, and there is resources. The mental health warm line is open right now. It's open till 7 o'clock at night from 10 to 7, 7 days a week. That's 565-2652. And they're life therapists, 565-2652. And also there are still people at our shelter, and we're transitioning them home. And for the people who are there who are homeless, we're working very hard on finding them some transitional housing. It's really important to stay safe, wear those masks. The air quality is still incredibly poor. We have a spare the air alert through Sunday. So you shouldn't be outside if you have any type of respiratory disease, and children with asthma. The small particulate matter that is in the wood burning smoke air can get into your lungs and your bloodstream and cause heart attacks and strokes. So please stay inside if you can. And if you do have to go outside, please wear a mask. And it's a good time to reach out to your neighbor. Cookies, friendship, smiles, whatever. Let's just be as kind to one another as we can. Thank you.
Very true. Stay connected. Supervisor Rabbit?
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And all I can say once again is just to say thank you to all of our partners out there, to all the firefighters on the front lines. And we know they're doing yeoman's work. A lot of area out there, a lot of steep terrain, a lot of burning stumps and everything else to mop up. We all need to be patient and allow them to do their job, and to all the support that they have. And of course, to the law enforcement, including our own Sonoma County sheriffs out there from the, day one. So, and to county staff, thank you so much. We are finally seemingly on the other side of this, and hopefully moving in a good direction. and it can't come too soon. So, but we're always blessed by having such great resources here in Sonoma County. And as we go into the recovery phase, we know that that same teamwork will continue with our federal and state partners. So thank you.
We'll go back to our questions from our audience. I want to just mention some of the folks in Hacienda. Appreciate the mention, Supervisor Hopkins, but we still have people in Rio Nito who are hoping for some update of when they may be able to return. Chief Nichols, do you have any thoughts on that?
So as I mentioned earlier, the crews are working across the top. So there was the initial dozer line pushed in just above Rio Nito, but that line is indirect. So we're trying to get that line buttoned up right on the fire's edge. So that's the hand crews that are in there today with the engines supporting them to go direct from Pasquini Canyon over to Sweetwater Springs Road to tie that portion in. As I mentioned earlier, the fire is advancing a little bit towards McPeak Road. Nothing crazy, but it is continuing down the hill towards the established dozer line, and we're trying to cut that off before it gets down there with crews and the engines to get that in check. But again, there's that steep deal. So until that line is cold above Rio Nito, that's the closest progression of the fire to the lower Russian River area there. So we want to make sure that we are tight and there's not going to be any rollout or a flare up on that line that's going to impact that community, because the reflex time to get folks out of those narrow canyon roads out to River Road and to safety would be extremely difficult if fire conditions were to change. So bear with us. Know that we're doing everything we can to get those hot spots extinguished and line put in so that we can get you home.
Thank you. We'll go back to questions from our media partners. We'll go to Guy Kovner from the Press Democrat. Guy? Guy, you're on mute. You want to try again? Okay, let's go to Martin Espinoza. Martin?
I had another question for Dr. Mase about the, is she still there? I don't, is Dr. Mase still on?
I'm sorry, Martin. I think Dr. Mase had to jump off for another appointment.
Okay, I'll bother her on her cell then. Yeah, I only had questions about the pandemic. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. Another question from our Facebook audience, and I guess this is another request for an update. Chief Nichols, here's a resident, Gina, says she just still doesn't understand why lower part of West Dry Creek is not open. What is the issue and the timing? What do you think?
The timing is going to be what the crews are able to accomplish here across the day today and into the day tomorrow. If you remember, it was just 2 days ago that we connected the various road networks out there with dozer lines and hand lines and conducted those firing operations. So again, until we're mopped up well inside from the line, a minimum of 100 feet in, we are not going to be able to allow folks back into that area just on the outside chance that there's rekindle of material and or an issue across the line. The thing that Gina can have confidence in is that with the southwest wind that we've gotten back in the fire area, that's the same pattern that we've had the several days, and we've had no new growth across that line. Coming down through the Dry Creek Valley the other night, I could not see any glows or fire from the road. So those crews are making headway on those hot spots, and we're looking to get them back home just as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. Guy Kovner is back with us. Guy?
That should have done it.
There you go. You're on.
Am I with you? Hey, I just want to make sure I understand that statistic about the 253 homes that were not damaged. Now, those are homes in the Walbridge fire zone.
Yeah, this is Sean. So the 253, we're only 55% done with looking at damage assessment on the Walbridge fire. As of this morning, through our damage assessment teams, it was stated to me that with all their data that they have 253 homes so far they have found within the fire perimeter that were not damaged by fire. So those 253 for today, as of this morning, were within the fire perimeter of the Walbridge.
Oh, of the Walbridge. Okay, thank you.
Of the yeah, just the Walbridge. That's all I'm talking about here. So, but those numbers are continue as all the data comes in, and it gets so. What's important with this is the verified information. They're out with tablets, and after they gather all, there's live feeds that we get with all those numbers, and it's important that we only give those verified that we try to do. So, that's what I have this morning, and that'll probably change again tomorrow with more data.
Thank you.
Okay, it's I think that's the end of our questions. Thank you everybody for being here. This is just a reminder that we will not be holding these news briefings over the weekend, but we'll have a public information office crew that will be providing updates over the weekend about the fires and the operations of our local assistance centers. This is also a reminder that as Supervisor Hopkins mentioned, we will be having two local assistance centers, one in Guerneville at the Bank of America and one in Healdsburg at Healdsburg High School. They both will be opening on Saturday and running from 1 until 7 o'clock. And then starting on Sunday and going forward until September 4th, they will be operating from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. We will also be back here. We will not be having these news briefings over the weekend, but we will be back at 4 o'clock on Monday for another fire and COVID-19 updates. Recordings of these updates, briefings will be available on the Sonoma County Facebook page and on YouTube in both English and Spanish. We thank you all for being here and hope you all have a restful weekend. Thank you.